nous avons jugé nécessaire de vous faire toucher du doigt les réalités de cette finance et surtout que vous puissiez en voir les fruits. Vous avez donc une foire aux bénéficiaires du Fonds national de la finance inclusive que vous pouvez voir juste en face de la place de l'Indépendance, donc dans la zone où nous nous trouvons. Et vous avez également juste à la sortie, donc derrière vous, un certain nombre de stands d'exposition des sponsors et partenaires. Nous vous prions de leur faire bon accueil et surtout d'aller toucher du doigt les réalités dont vous parlez au cours des différents panels et de pouvoir rencontrer ces bénéficiaires pour vous rendre compte du modèle et de l'exemple togolais qui est certes perfectible mais qui a quand même quelques résultats à son actif que nous vous invitons à découvrir. Voilà donc ce que nous voudrions vous dire et nous vous ferons d'aimables rappels encore une fois pour que vous puissiez voir la foire des bénéficiaires du FNFI en face de la place de l'Indépendance, donc dans le rond-point de l'hôtel de février, mais également les expositions des partenaires et sponsors de cette SAM 6e édition. Merci. À vous la parole.
Bonjour, bienvenue à tous à la 9e séance de la SAM. Aujourd'hui, nous allons parler de l'action holistique. Est-ce que c'est la clé pour le développement de l'agriculture intelligente face au climat? Je m'appelle Ena de Renoncourt, je suis responsable des investissements sensibles aux gens au sein de l'équipe de finances durables du CGIAR et c'est un plaisir pour moi d'avoir avec nous aujourd'hui ce panel qui va parler de ce sujet tant important et tant pertinent à notre rencontre aujourd'hui. La finance inclusive est comme outil pour l'adoption de l'agriculture intelligente face au climat requiert des partenariats et requiert de l'innovation. Et lorsqu'on regarde le contexte du jour, c'est que les agriculteurs, les petits agriculteurs ont besoin d'environ 240 milliards de dollars en vue de s'adapter au changement climatique. Et d'après une publication de ISF et de Mastercard Foundation. Donc, la finance n'est pas la panacée. Par contre, c'est un levier essentiel pour la mise à l'échelle de ces pratiques intelligentes face au climat. Et la pratique intelligente face au climat, qu'est-ce que ça veut dire? Ça inclut des pratiques basées sur le contexte qui sont basées sur 3 piliers, l'adaptation, la mitigation et la productivité. Et ainsi, on va pouvoir parler des différentes approches, des recommandations, des expériences et des opportunités qui puissent nous permettre d'adresser et de trouver des solutions à comment accompagner les petits producteurs à leur résilience. Donc, je rappelle aujourd'hui que nous avons avec nous Olga Bioska qui va se présenter et qui va nous parler qui va commencer par adresser quels sont les défis, what are the challenges that smallholder farmers are facing today to implement climate smart agriculture practices, and why do these challenges persist?
Thank you very much, Anna, and thank you very much for having invited me to this excellent panel. My name is Olga Wioska. I work in the UNO Center for Social Business and Health. This is a research center in Glasgow Caledonian University in Scotland. And in the same university, we have a Center for Climate Justice. And that's how we started to look a lot more into microfinance and climate change and products that could be innovative enough to be scalable, perhaps replicable, I don't know, for smallholder farmers who are heavily underserved, as you all know, to use. So we were discussing about the challenges. So in one of our projects, we talked to over 500 smallholder farmers. Some of them were using microfinance, some of them weren't. And there's 4 things that came to mind. So these guys, and this is an undeniable truth, are at the forefront of the fight for climate change. They are fighting droughts and floods, and they need the means to get through it all. There's another undeniable truth, and this is like they are an incredibly risky group of the population to serve by microfinance institutions. So all the challenges that come along are connected to those 2 points, right? So what we saw was that the financial products that these farmers had access to were not really adapted to their needs. And this was because the MFIs need to de-risk the sector a little bit, so it's finding ways of making them less risky. So it's about, for example, collateral, the basics, but it's also about borrowing in groups, so VSLAs or cooperatives or farmer groups. It's also about characteristics of the loans. So they would need loans that are better adapted to their cash flows, which are more and more erratic, the repayment schedules. It also now comes quite heavily tied with when or how fast the loans are disbursed, because their windows for planting are narrower and narrower. So all these things were mentioned, but it's really difficult to offer them. There was something else which was frequently loans that smallholder farmers have access to are tied to a particular input. So it's for a particular climate resilient seed, fertilizer, pesticide, and sometimes they just want cash. And they're also trending towards more adaptive activities rather than mitigation. So they want loans that help them to get better irrigation systems, water tanks, pumps, that perhaps with a single microfinance loan are really difficult to get to. There's something about access as well. So when we're talking about groups, it's also the most vulnerable who are left behind. So it's women, the elderly, the youngsters who don't have collateral to be a member of the cooperative, for example. And we mustn't, when we are looking for solutions to serve smallholder farmers, we mustn't forget that there's another group of vulnerable people that do not have access to the groups through which the funds are channeled. There's another very big argument about, and yesterday it was brought up in every session I attended to, the lack of financial literacy and the lack of financial confidence, as well as digital literacy, because most of the solutions are coming hands in hands with fintech. So that is a substantial problem, and I think the holistic microfinance here has to play an important role. So we saw a lot of innovation happening throughout Africa and a lot of very promising partnerships. So I think these challenges they are surmountable. We need to work really hard together to get through them and serve all these unserved smallholder farmers, I think.
Thank you, Olga. Very pertinent point, and especially talking about the challenges faced by farmers throughout the different geographies. But let's go to Togo. Charles Ilougan de la ferme Cadette, vous êtes avec nous aujourd'hui pour partager votre expérience. Est-ce que les points abordés par Olga résonnent avec votre contexte particulier et les défis dont les producteurs que vous accompagnez? Est-ce que ça résonne? Et maintenant, par rapport au changement climatique, quelles pratiques vous avez identifiées? Et maintenant, quelles sont les options de financement que vous avez auxquelles vous avez pu accéder?
Ok, merci beaucoup. Mon nom c'est Yougan Kofi-Gifa. Je suis responsable du centre CADET. CADET, c'est le Centre africain de développement des technologies agroécologiques. Nous sommes basés au Togo. Merci beaucoup pour la question, elle est vraiment pertinente. Nous savons aujourd'hui que, qu'on veuille ou non, nous sommes dans une condition où il va falloir qu'on change nos habitudes de tous les jours. Les producteurs, comme Olga l'a su signifier, la plus grande difficulté que nous avons, c'est ce que le climat nous offre aujourd'hui, qui est la sécheresse, les inondations à gauche et à droite, la pluviométrie qui se fait rare et se concentre des fois, ce qui fait que ça donne un problème crucial au niveau de la base. Et pour s'adapter à ce système de culture, nous avons au niveau de la base besoin de moyens conséquents pour pouvoir assumer toutes ces conséquences dans lesquelles nous sommes aujourd'hui. Partageant les expériences ou ce que nous avons aujourd'hui ou ce que nous faisons avec les producteurs, nous sommes dans une section où notre idéologie est sur l'agroécologie. Nous développons des pratiques innovantes pour pouvoir vulgariser et mettre à disposition des coopératives ou ceux que nous accompagnons pour pouvoir faire face à ces problèmes climatiques. Nous sommes également au niveau de l'agroforesterie que nous vulgarisons beaucoup. Nous sommes dans la multiplication des micro-organismes que nous fabriquons et que nous mettrons à disposition des producteurs. Mais le grand défi se trouve au niveau de l'irrigation, où nous avons franchement besoin assez de financement pour pouvoir mettre le système plus fiable. J'ai l'habitude de dire souvent que pour agir au niveau de la base, nous avons besoin de travailler sur 6 piliers ou 6 facteurs. Le premier, c'est le facteur eau. Le facteur eau, tant que nous n'avons pas cette maîtrise au niveau de l'eau, ça va être hyper compliqué pour la production. L'autre facteur également, c'est le facteur terre, l'accessibilité des terres par rapport aux producteurs, c'est-à-dire que le problème foncier et tout ça sont des problèmes à régler. Et l'autre facteur, c'est les matériels de production. Aujourd'hui, nous ne pouvons plus rester avec les matériels rudimentaires pour dire que nous pouvons passer à l'échelle. Là, obligatoirement, il nous faut une mécanisation du secteur au niveau de la base pour pouvoir parler du volume, en termes de volume de production. Nous avons également la technologie qui doit accompagner tout le processus, parce qu'aujourd'hui, avec cette histoire de mondialisation, nous ne pouvons absolument rien faire sans la technologie. L'autre facteur également qui est crucial, c'est le facteur marché. Aujourd'hui, si nous produisons et que nous n'avons pas le marché, on se demande comment nous allons faire pour rembourser, même si tous les systèmes financiers sont abordables au niveau des producteurs, même si, quand nous n'aurons pas un marché fiable, est-ce que nous pouvons quand même vendre les produits et rembourser les crédits? Donc, ce sont ces 6 piliers-là qu'il va falloir que nous agissions de manière simultanée. Ça ne doit pas être individuel. C'est ça même le côté global ou le côté holistique de la chose que nous voudrons quand même mettre à disposition pour qu'on puisse mieux comprendre le système de fonctionnement, pour qu'on puisse évoluer ensemble au niveau de la base. Et parce que l'autre défi également qui est là, c'est que les producteurs, arrivés à un moment, ils ne savent plus quoi faire parce que ils n'ont qu'une seule culture ou 2 cultures qu'ils font. Là, du coup, vous voyez qu'il n'y a pas eu de diversification des revenus au niveau de la base. Et là, ça cause également de nombreux problèmes à l'adaptation de ce changement climatique. Donc, pour le moment, je vais m'arrêter ici et pour qu'on puisse continuer le débat. Mais tous ces piliers-là sont très importants pour nous, pour qu'on puisse travailler de manière simultanée et pouvoir évoluer.
Merci Charles et de nous avoir parlé de votre réalité. Et ce que je retiens, c'est les pratiques qui demandent un investissement en capital important. Et en plus des pratiques intelligentes face au climat, sont celles qui présentent le challenge pour le financement. Maintenant, nous allons passer à M. Walla Lisenio de Farmerline, qui va nous présenter sa structure. But could you please tell us what gaps you have identified and in terms of accessing to finance and implementing those climate smart practices and how that has informed Farmerline's business model?
All right, thank you so much. So I'm the country manager for Farmerline, and Farmerline Farmerline is a tech-enabled service provider, and what we do is to help smallholder farmers access climate-smart agriculture. We've been doing this over the past 10 years. We launched our operations trying to help bridge the information gap for smallholder farmers, and this has evolved into connecting smallholder farmers to resources such as high-quality seeds, inputs, training them, and then also linking them to market. Over the period, we've seen that just trying to deal with one aspect of the challenges smallholder farmers face is not enough, and it goes back to what has been spoken across, that you need a holistic approach. And so how do you leverage technology to extend services to smallholder farmers? Going back to your question in regards to what's been some of the gaps that we've seen. So looking at the non-financial gaps, one of the critical gaps we've seen is farmers' access and being able to continuously get access to training or getting technical support or extension delivery that can help them adopt these innovative practices. The approach that farmers used to use for farming 10 years ago, 20 years ago is not applicable now. Because we have climate change, because we have a growing population, we need to adopt and be more intentional in the way we farm. And so farmers need to get these new practices and be able to adopt it, and even at scale, as Kofi mentioned. How do we take this information closer to farmers? And so these are some of the gaps that we identified, and we also noticed the opportunity that technology brings into bear, leveraging the mobile phone. The second gap is also about markets, the way the markets are structured. These are non-financial in a sense. A lot of them work in small groups, but they need help to aggregate, and that can help open opportunity for local agribusinesses, as we call them in some parlance, as middlemen or off-takers, to provide services to help them meet market standards and quality. And that's also an opportunity for us that technology also comes in to support. But critical, or the big elephant in the room, is the financials, which I think my colleagues have really said a lot about, is having tailored products that meet the need of smallholder farmers. Unfortunately, we do not, oftentimes the financial institutions do not see that clearly, even though they speak about it. When it comes to the practice, it's quite a big challenge. And so there is room for technology to offer that. And typically, one of the big interest area is how do we encourage digitization of activities within this sector to help financial institutions see the value of offering credit lines to smallholder farmers who need this timely deliveries at price point that make business sense. So that's sort of a brief what I'll share, and basically evolving Farmerline into what we are, enabling us to over the past 2 years, 3 years, been able to extend $20 million of our investment to help finance inputs and seeds, and now we have a lot of financial institutions coming to partner with us, and we're working together to extend support to them. The other bit too, which is informed and evolved our business model, is through partnerships with Oracle Credit, for example, through with support from Snoop, where we are scaling our farmer extension program. And this is being rolled out across Cote d'Ivoire, Togo, Benin, to help farmers get continuous training, sort of a 911 for farmers, to train them at any point they need help. They can just dial from their mobile phone to receive content, climate smart content in their local language, taking out the barrier, the challenge with barrier to distance and then language. Thanks.
Thank you very much for this overview, Wolali, and I'm going to go straight to Lydia. We have heard about the challenges and about how technology coupled with finance, access to market, will bundle together can offer the opportunity to, for farmers to uptake climate smart practices. So I would like to ask you, Lydia, what opportunities do you see? Because at the end of the day, we're talking about resilience, and we are increasing access, but we want to make sure also we reach the most vulnerable and we achieve what we are looking for is adaptation so that farmers can be resilient to climate change. So, Lydia, from your experience and the work that you're doing at Opportunity International, can you provide us with some entry points into that end?
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Good morning. Bonjour. As you've introduced, I work with Opportunity International. Opportunity International is a microfinance organization. We aim to provide access to finance, and not just finance, but training and also other support services to our clients. We've been operating for the past 50 years. And most importantly, our job is to work with the poor. So agriculture is a very key part of the program that we do. As we all know, majority of the clients or the people that we work with live in the rural community, and the main thing that they do is agriculture. So that is very close and dear to our heart. And it's really important that to hear all the gaps that we've listened to, and those are some of the things that we've already identified within Opportunity International. More and more, I do ask myself, you talk about the opportunities, how come that we have farmers, smallholder farmers constitute about 80% of our population, but yet it is these farmers that always more or less go to bed hungry every day, which is a key question that we have to ask ourselves. The other thing that we've been looking at is how do we also make sure that these farmers will also, we create that opportunity for them, not only to be able to feed themselves, but also to feed nations, feed the whole, like the world as a whole. So within Opportunity International, these are some of the things that we've been looking at. We are looking at innovations to address some of these things. First opportunity that I would like to talk about is how do we design our products as financial institutions to be able to meet the needs of the people that we work with. As my colleagues have been talking about, most often we just pick a product from the shelves and then we just give it to the farmers, forgetting that farming is time sensitive. We give the money to them today. We don't wait for them to harvest their crops. We don't wait for them to get better marketing for their produce, and therefore they are forced to sell the crops when the prices are not so good. So within Opportunity International, these are some of the things that we've been trying to do, and that call for the three things that we'll be talking about this morning: the use of technology, access to finance, and non-financial services. So for example, if I take some of the programs that we've been doing, we know Olga was talking about products and collateral issues. So we realize that when it comes to access to finance, collateral is such a big thing, especially for women farmers. So one of the things that we've been trying to do is to look at alternative form of collateral. Most often, as when women come to us, we ask them for landed properties, assets that are in their names to be able to secure the loans. But we realize most often, particularly for women, they do not have these assets in their name. So what Opportunity International have been looking at is, could we look at the things that particularly these farmers have in hand, and how do we help them to document it and make sure that they have these assets in their name? So for example, in Northern Ghana, one thing that we've been trying to do is to provide asset financing. So if the woman need access to irrigation facility, we give them those assets. Money for that, but we give them in the form of a loan and make sure that these assets are registered in their name so that in future, when they have to come out for more loans, they can use these assets as a form of collateral. So this is one of the things that we've been trying to do. When you go to Malawi, for example, access to savings are really, really important. Just recently in March, in my program in Malawi, they have cyclone. The work that we've been doing for the past 3 or 4 years, farmers were expecting good harvest. Within just a night, there was a huge cyclone, and most of their farms were washed away. So what do? They need access to immediate financing, emergency loans, whereby they will be able to restart their life once again. So that is where opportunities step in. With the help of our donor organization, JC Overseas Aid, we were able to give them funding to be injected into their savings association so that they can borrow it. But not only that, but we also gave them the training on good agronomic practices such that they will start winter cropping. So by today, they already have crops in the land, so they've started rebuilding their lives. So these are some of the opportunities that we have as financial institutions, not just looking at it from our perspective and only just from our portfolio, but if we design programs to suit the needs of our farmers, it's also very good for our portfolio, because then they are able to increase their production, they get good income, and therefore they are able to repay our loans. So it becomes a win-win for all of us as well. I'm sure there are more to talk about, but I'll end here and then we can continue the discussion.
Thank you very much, Lydia, for these insights and really to unpack what we can do and how we can innovate and think outside the box to provide solutions that fit within the different contexts. And I'm gonna go back now to Worlali and to really try to see how this pairing of technology, financial, and non-financial approaches can be bundled in such an innovative way so that the farmers can really be able to uptake these practices, and give us a little bit more detail about the work that FarmerLine is doing in that sense.
Right, thank you so much. So I think everything for us from our perspective to give the comfort that the financial institutions need, to also better understand the business of these smallholder farmers, ultimately helping reduce risk, requires for the ecosystem to start with digitization, that we need to move from manual or no record at all into record keeping. But there has to be a very sustainable and easy way for that to happen. And that's where oftentimes the challenge is. And so if farmer's job is to farm, you don't expect a farmer to start digitizing his records as such, as in using an app, or you design an app that is user-friendly, easy tech for them to use without worrying about learning so much about its functionality or the technology behind it, but the fact that they can receive the benefits of it. So one of the approaches that we as a company started is, we do know that there are a lot of mobile phones available to smallholders, and these phones are usually basic phones. They don't have internet connectivity, but they have the ability to make a call. And so we launched a product called 399, which is sort of a national helpline for farmers, where they can call in their local language, gives them the opportunity to learn, give them opportunity to interact with experts who can assist them, but importantly also connect them to inputs which they need and connect them to markets. Behind all this is the magic of how technology and stuff operates. On the other side, we have a lot of local businesses who are playing roles, either in a form of an agro-input shop or they aggregate. But because their businesses are not structured in a way that financial institutions can see their cash flow, etc., they basically see them as risk. And so one of the approaches we're doing with them is also giving them basic tools that help them in their shops to digitize their sales record, their inventory. And we're giving opportunity for young people to assist them, because we have cases where in some of the shops, the owners are not literate, but you got young, high school leavers who need jobs, but are creating opportunity for them to support these businesses. And this is happening through technical assistance that we're giving to these local shops to help young people digitize their operations. And the beauty is that the data that is coming then gives comfort for financial institutions to come in to invest. And so over the past 3 years, as I mentioned, we've used this data and our operations to support close to 400 agri-SMEs, and using that, better our own resources to extend, using the data to provide credit scoring for these agri-SMEs and extend close to $20 million to help. And as I speak, we have partnership with quite major banks who are seeing the value of extending, using this ecosystem or this support to, to extend the needed capital. But it didn't come off easily. We had to invest in infrastructure to train farmers, continuously train farmers for them to know where to get the needed support. We needed to also work with other actors within the ecosystem, the value chain, agro-input dealers. We needed to work with aggregators to make sure that they also support or get the needed help to support the ecosystem. And then finance then comes in to see the opportunity. And so in doing so, we are seeing great opportunity. And like I said, we are scaling our operations. We started in Ghana with just 400 farmers. Now we are serving over 300,000 farmers in Ghana. Through partnership with Oiko Credit, we are actually scaling our operations into Cote d'Ivoire. We launched digitize over 30,000 plus farmers. We are extending to Togo, Benin. And this is the opportunity that creates for financial institutions to see value. And I think that there's room for various stakeholders here, be it in the development space, be it in the financial institution, but we have the opportunity to unlock investment from the financial institutions to support the work that has to be done to create climate resilience.
Thank you very much, Wolali. Now, we have spoken about the opportunities and the innovations. Je vais me retourner vers M. Ilougan, qui voit ce que proposent les institutions de soutien. Et il faut maintenant voir est-ce que c'est applicable, est-ce que c'est pertinent au challenge que vous avez présenté et quelles sont les perspectives par rapport à ces outils qui sont présentés aujourd'hui dans votre contexte à vous.
Ok, merci. Je remercie mon collègue par rapport à son intervention qui je trouve très louable, leurs pratiques qui sont en train de développer au niveau du Ghana. Je suis sûr qu'on va quitter de bonnes bases pour le développer également au Togo. Les programmes qui sont là, si je parle de mon pays en matière de financement, et le gros défi, comme je viens de le citer par rapport aux problèmes majeurs qu'on a tout de suite, les facteurs, quand je prends au niveau de l'irrigation, nous, dans notre système ou dans notre ferme, nous avons pu installer un système d'irrigation qui est là pour permettre à vulgariser cette technique-là. Nous avons mis plusieurs types d'irrigation qui sont là au niveau du centre. Mais à moindre coût, en tout cas pour attirer quand même les producteurs pour voir que, au fait, des fois, nous n'avons pas besoin de trop de moyens pour pouvoir investir au niveau du secteur agricole. Voilà. Donc, toutes ces bases de construction que nous avons mises en place avec les différentes technologies que nous avons mises en place. C'est-à-dire quand je prends au niveau de la production des fertilisants, nous avons mis en place des technologies d'association ou des pratiques combinées qui sont mises en place, c'est-à-dire que pour servir d'observation et d'observation et d'apprentissage, comme le frère vient de le dire, parce que la plupart des formations que nous avons aujourd'hui sont des formations plus théoriques et qui ne permettent pas à ce monde qui ne comprend pas grand chose de voir comment s'adapter à ce système ou à ce changement climatique que nous avons aujourd'hui. Donc, comment on appelle Là où nous aurons plus besoin, en réalité, des financiers, c'est au niveau des investissements. La plupart des produits que nous avons aujourd'hui sont des produits qui sont vers le fonds de roulement. C'est-à-dire que on finance que des intrants. Or, lorsque nous n'avons pas mis en place un vrai système d'investissement en place, vous allez voir que les producteurs peuvent avoir accès à ces offres de crédit, mais au finish, ils ne peuvent pas avoir le résultat escompté en termes de rentabilité parce que les autres facteurs ne sont pas quand même réunis pour pouvoir donner une plus-value au produit en termes de rentabilité. Ce qui fait que le producteur se bat, mais nous n'avons pas un résultat escompté juste parce que nous refusons d'investir dans ces domaines dont nous parlons tantôt. L'autre défi que je disais quand je citais mes trucs, c'est le défi des marchés. Nous avons un souci au niveau de notre continent, je vais le dire ainsi. Vous voyez, au niveau des Occidentaux, au niveau des Américains, ils ont des normes de protection des produits qu'ils ont à leur niveau. Mais bizarrement, chez nous en Afrique, vous allez voir que nous n'avons pas ce système qui est mis en place. Et tout produit peut venir des autres continents vers l'Afrique, mais le contraire est soumis à des normes. Autrement dit, le marché chez nous est tellement compliqué à accéder, d'abord parce que nous n'avons pas assez de moyens pour pouvoir intégrer ces marchés. Et là, ils ont, en tout cas, tous ceux qui font l'importation de ces produits vers nos pays font des recherches quand même de ce genre de marché et essaient d'envoyer les produits là ici. Mais nous n'avons pas cette capacité de pouvoir introduire nos produits même au niveau du marché interne et au niveau du marché externe. Ce qui fait que le problème du marché devient un problème crucial et tant que nous n'aurons pas cette capacité de produire également et assez, vous allez voir que le producteur reste coincé dans un angle où il ne sait pas concrètement ce qu'il faut faire. Donc, les investisseurs, moi en tout cas, pour l'idéologie ou ce que nous préconisons, c'est qu'on mette des portefeuilles qui agissent plus au niveau des investissements en matière de matériel de production, par exemple. Lorsque nous prenons, nous avons des artisans, par exemple, quand je prends mon pays, le Togo, nous avons assez d'artisans qui fabriquent de bons matériels pour les cultures, mais nous n'avons pas les moyens pour pouvoir acheter. Du coup, vous voyez que la chaîne se coupe en même temps et on est là, on fait la promotion des tracteurs et tout ça là pour pouvoir augmenter la productivité, mais nous avons quand même des moyens plus faciles pour pouvoir avoir accès à ces choses. Mais il faut, le truc pour moi, l'importance, c'est tant qu'on ne va pas agir sur le levier des investissements, même si les moyens que nous mettrons au niveau du fonds de roulement ne vont quand même pas jouer grand rôle.
D'accord. Merci beaucoup, Charles. Et là, maintenant, on voit par rapport à vos installations aux producteurs que vous accompagnez, le besoin vers, encore une fois, les investissements qui sont plus importants et qui sont plus dans la durée. Maintenant, on va retourner vers Olga par rapport aux risques et aux contraintes, parce qu'on a pu identifier les besoins, and I'm going to ask you in English. So we need to look for risks because we're taking a step towards innovation, and there may be risk. So can you talk about the risk and constraints, and also the role of science in mitigating those risks?
So, risks. Okay, I'm going to start talking. I talk loud enough. Okay, so about the risk and constraint. I think the main risk was mentioned by Borlali, resources. Like the challenge ahead is so big. We need all resources that we can. And I think to get that, we need to unlock resources, perhaps in hands of private sector, governments. I mean, it's such a big task that the more the merrier. We all need to be in this together. Regarding fintech, because I think the main innovations are going to come through that way, and it makes a lot of sense. Two things. One, we need to be mindful that we might be leaving some people behind. So perhaps, I know this is not your case, but low connectivity, smartphones, use of smartphones, some particular things. So that's one thing. And the other thing is about, data protection and ethics. And I know every fintech I've met that works on this, they take this incredibly seriously and are regulated by all kind of laws. But it's also how you use it down the chain, right? So we've seen some examples of a whole cooperative using a single smartphone and everybody putting username and passwords, and then there's the one person who has access to everybody's accounts, right? And it's just how we take that through down the chain, which is also important. Regulation, we haven't mentioned it, but it needs to be conducive. It needs not to stifle innovation, but it needs to protect the consumers. So that balance is incredibly hard to meet. So that is something to bear in mind as well. And finally, I think this, to deliver holistic products, programs, we need holistic approaches, and there needs to be many components of different institutions, different organizations, and different layers. So I would...
Great. And that leads us to the final question to Lydia, how multiple stakeholders and partnerships can help us reach there in the shorter time than we see in front of us.
Thank you. That's quite an interesting discussion so far. I think I just want to make one quick point on what we've been talking about, and I think this is really, really important. I know we are all talking about technology, but I just want to emphasize more on what Ona was saying, that we should really mind the gender gap when it comes to digital access, when we are trying to leverage technology. Because most often in our work, we really want our clients, no matter who they are, whether they are women, youth, people with disability, to be part of the digital journey. But we should also be very conscious of the fact that not everyone have access to those technologies. So as we look into bringing everybody into the ecosystem, it's really important that we acknowledge that. And that leads to the question that you've just asked in terms of partnership and opportunities. We cannot do it all. Is it an ecosystem? So why do we need to reinvent the wheel, as Olani was trying to say? If there is a database that we can all tap into to be able to give credit scoring system, why should I create my app? He was talking about an app that you're already using, and I know within Opportunity International, we've also created our savings app, whereby we are working with Village Savings Association so we can digitize their ledger books and make them more efficient. So it makes me think that it calls really for a good partnership and good collaboration, because all the key stakeholders within the value chain should really be coming together to help. And that does not just lead into MFIs or people within the value chain, but I'm also talking about both governmental and the non-governmental organizations coming together. For example, we know that climate is such a big thing, particularly in northern Ghana where we were working. And Opportunity International, we know we are good with when it comes to access to finance. But when it comes to the market data, when it comes to access to weather information, that is not our strength. So what we did was to partner with another organization called ESOCO to provide these farmers with data on their phones to tell them today is going to rain, so this is the time for you to plant their crops. Or when you go to Village B, the price of maize is X amount, and when you go to village C, the price of maize is Y amount, so farmers can make that informed decision, because we need to look at it holistically, because there's no point for us to give the farmers access to financing, give them the training, and they produce more, and as Kofi was trying to say, at the end of the day, they don't have market for their produce. So that partnership becomes very, very important. And again, it also leads to partnership again in terms of financing. So we need to finance the whole value chain, as Olani was also trying to say. And I will not leave out, I will say when it comes to agriculture and in the work that we are doing, education really, really matters. And that calls for training in terms of how farmers can adapt into to produce more, because it's so sad hearing from Kofi that farmers are actually producing almost a third of what the potential that they are able to produce. So it calls for us to train them. There are lots of climate smart agriculture training programs, but what is needed is to bring all these partnerships together so that we can put it at the doorstep of the farmers so they can access all these facilities to be able to increase their productivity. And that will not leave out also the research institutions. As we are saying, climate change is becoming so fast and ever present in our lives. So we need everyday research work. So it's really important. And I know sometimes as financial institutions, as NGOs, we want to keep things under our wraps and we don't necessarily want to share it. But it's really important for us to partner with research institutions to be able to know the technical know-how and be able to use it to improve upon our productivity. So I guess the point that I want to hammer home is that partnership is important. And also within the farmers themselves, because one of the things that we've really learned from our work within Africa is that farmers learn best from their own farmers. So within Opportunity International, for example, we created what we call farmer support systems, whereby we train up-and-coming successful farmers to be able to deliver some of these training programs to their farmers. And because they live in the community, when Opportunity International leave and we move from that community, those farmers are still there, so other farmers can still tap into the knowledge that we are creating within those communities, so they are able to transfer it over and over again. So I would say that let's continue to build that kind of relationship and partnership, and one size will never fit all. So we all need to collaborate and make sure that we provide that kind of holistic solution to the farmers that we are working with. Thank you.
Thank you, Lydia. This has been a tremendous pleasure to moderate the panel. Now we are going to open up to questions from the public, if there are any questions. We have a question in the back. Allez-y, monsieur, à l'arrière. Ah, ils n'ont pas de micro. Ok. On vous apporte un micro? On apporte un micro pour vous. Vous pouvez vous mettre debout? Allez-y.
Merci beaucoup pour la question. Nous sommes en train de parler de développement de l'agriculture, mais ma question reste liée sur la question que le modérateur a posée, les risques liés au changement climatologique. On a parlé des inondations, de la sécheresse, des cyclones. Et quelqu'un aurait proposé qu'il faut un crédit d'urgence. Je voudrais savoir ce crédit d'urgence, comment l'agriculteur le rembourse et ça sert à quoi. Mais aussi, que faut-il faire? Je reste sur ma soif de savoir, lorsqu'il y a ces changements climatologiques, on a tous ces risques-là, qu'est-ce qu'il faut faire pour que l'agriculteur puisse s'en sortir? Merci beaucoup.
Merci. Who would like to take this question about addressing climate adaptation for farmers, and especially during climate extreme events? what products and what can the farmer do when they are hit with this situation.
Okay. So I'll share what we're doing, and so I think, like we've already said, there's no one size fits all, but part of the package that we offer farmers is including insurance, which is sort of a new concept, especially to farmers when you're talking about crop insurance. And because of the nature of their farming, you index it. So basically there are new products around index-based, whether rain or drought-based sort of insurance. There are a couple of agritech companies that are on the continent now delivering this. And so in our operations, we bundle this into our input packages, for example. Or it comes at a cost, and so you need to make a business decision whether the farmer will take it or you will take that cost, and then decide how to share. But we have cases where businesses are opting to take that, or it's being cross-subsidized for them. So that's one. The second approach is to provide diversified approach to farming. So it's not just doing one type of agriculture. So in our training, we're also helping farmers do other things beyond just depending on rain, or so if the rain doesn't come, they are not able to produce. So investing in solar irrigation systems so they can produce all year round. So there are various tools and services that you can help introduce farmers to cushion them when these vulnerabilities, or shocks hit them. At least that's some of the experiences that we see helping, but there's not one size fits all.
Great. Lydia would like to quickly add something?
Yes, so for Opportunity International, of course, we do that. We do bundle insurance, but I think it depends on where it is. So, for example, when the client there's climatic issues, shocks, they need access to emergency loans, they need access to savings, and as a financial institution, there's no way they are able to pay the loan. So you need to also think about loan restructuring and giving them much longer terms to repay the loan. So that is one aspect that we try to do. And again, when I talk about the designing of the program to suit products and services to suit the needs of the farmers, these are critical things that we have to take into consideration. Farmers need sales of products. So, for example, in our program in Mozambique, when the cyclone hit, the farmers were saying that yes, they've lost everything, but thank God they were able to put some savings aside for that rainy day, which helped them to do that. And I also want to emphasize the need for crop diversification and business diversification. So within our crop, in our program, we have what we call the mentorship program. So not only are we encouraging farmers to look at farming as a business, but also looking at non-farming activities so that they will be able to tap into those things. So we have a mentorship program where we encourage the farm to go into income-generating activities, value additions into their products, so that if the crops are washed away, at least they might have other sources of income to be able to live on as well.
Yes, thank you, Lydia and Wolali, for these answers. And this is exactly what we mean by resilience, is that when the climate shock hits, we would have all the mitigating arrangement prior so that the farmer can bounce back on their feet and start over their activities. And this includes diversification of production, diversification of financial products, emergency loans, bundling index insurance within the loan packages, and also at the level of the financial institutions themselves, they can integrate climate risk in the analysis of their credit issuance protocol so that they can factor that in when they are extending the loan. So these are the different type of actions that proactively, before engaging with the farmer, every partner within the value chain can take to address this resilience issue. In the back.
Thank you so much, panel. I'm glad that you mentioned insurance, because that was what I was going to talk about. because you realize that if you are talking about inclusive or holistic approach to developing climate smart agriculture, insurance plays a significant role here. And realize that, most farmers, and not only farmers only, illiterate people don't even like insurance. So I was going to, suggest to, for example, Farmer Line, since, they have a lot of digital approach in processing data to really, as it were, partner with some insurance companies so that the data they harvest from these micro SMEs, these insurance people can process that and, develop a product for that. My question goes to Opportunity International. You realize that they have a lot of credit guarantee system in Africa. For example, in Ghana, we have the GESEL. You realize that most financial institutions are on the GESEL, but they are not utilizing it. Could you share with us what are some of the hindrances for the financial institutions? Some of them even not subscribing to the credit guarantee systems, and why are they not also utilizing to the fullest? Thank you so much.
Thank you. That's a very important question. Thank you so much. Again, it's a number of factors. Some of the conditions of some of these loan guarantees sometimes are not so appealing, if I should say, to the MFIs. Sometimes the conditions that they have to meet. And also, most often, it's also have to do with lack of education. People are not necessarily so much aware of it. Most often when we work with a number of financial institutions across Africa, and sometimes you talk to them, the first request that they ask for is loan guarantee to give them the comfort to be able to lend to farmers. However, some of them are not even aware of some of the loan guarantee facilities that are within the continent. So I would say that if you are an organization within our continent that is trying to support financial institutions to be able to lend to farmers, please, let's make sure that we educate and make known the facilities that we have and also the conditions that we attach to some of these loan guarantee systems. I know we've got a lot of impact investors trying to support the financial institutions, but I know within my institution, there's no way that my board will allow us to go for a foreign denominated loans or guarantee system, because as you know, within Africa, our inflation rate is over the roof, about 40–50%. So the money today will be worth nothing tomorrow. So as I'm saying, some of the conditions that we are attaching to the risk mechanisms that we are offering to the financial institutions, I will appeal to all of us as we look into it to, if it's proper cost sharing, then we have to make sure that we share the risk, not necessarily passing it on to the financial institutions that we are working with. Yeah.
This is great. Thank you very much, Lydia, for the question. We're taking one last question, and then we're going to conclude. We have many questions here.
Good morning, Karen Chama from World Vision Fund International. My question can be picked up by any of the panelists. Is everything okay? My question can be picked up by any of the panelists, and it really is around the holistic approach. And I think about it this way, around the many things that have been discussed. It starts from on-farm work that's going on with the smallholder farmers, what's going on the ground, the production and productivity. It moves over to all the risks that we've been talking about that are susceptible to. We talk about how we can mitigate all of that, and all the way to market systems and the market itself, warehouse receipting, and all that. Now, my question is, has any of you experienced this holistic approach to delivery of services for the smallholder farmers? And what has been some of the experiences and successes of having to put together all these players who, for me, are key and are many? We have had an experience at Vision Fund trying to provide value chain financing in several countries, piloted. We've seen some successes, but at the same time as we go on, we begin to realize that we actually need a lot of players in place for us to take this forward and all the way to the end. Has any of you managed to put together all these players and go all the way and have a successful product delivery for the agriculture sector? And in this case now we're talking about climate change, and so we begin to talk about education to the smallholder farmers and appropriate education that responds to climate resilience. My final comment to the organizers of SAM is to recommend you for this gathering, but also to say that even as we discuss climate change and holistic approaches, I would recommend that in future we get all the players in place that will drive our agenda, because microfinancing is very complicated and it can be done by one person or one institution. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for these great comments and the questions. So, as you probably know in your experience, it takes a village, and partners from the whole value chains are needed to implement solutions and deliver products. We're gonna give opportunity to maybe Lydia or Olga to talk, since you haven't, or Wolali, whoever wants to take up the question.
Yes, so like you know, it is a very hard road to walk, trying to align with partners. We started preaching this 10 years ago, trying to work with financial institutions. We're still working at it. We have to, put in our own sweat and tears to show, to prove a case that there's possibility to create, wealth by doing this. And so to your question is, it takes hard work. It takes a lot of, sacrifice, a lot of, conversations. I can tell you how many times I've sat in meetings with banks, and 5 years down the line, we are still talking. But farmers are struggling, and so you have to do what, for example, the low-hanging fruit, what is showing success that can give them that little comfort, and then bring them on that road. I think our work over the past 10 years has shown that we are finding there's, a good combination of leveraging technology, leveraging partnerships, and then working closely with smallholder farmers to get them, to build their resilience. We are assessing, we're not saying we have arrived or we found a silver, bullet. It's still going through, iteration, it's still going through refinement, and we can't stop at it, because climate change is always throwing us new challenges, and we always have to support each other, work with, our partners. For example, right now we are promoting, in our supply chain with farmers, they are, sequestrating carbon, not on their farms, but also in their household. So using biogas systems, etc. And this provide other source of income to them in that process. But this would not happen if we just sit and say we'll just focus on farming alone, or decide to work on one aspect of it. And so partnership we always have to talk, we always have to disagree and agree, and then ultimately there has to be a business to keep it. Because when the donor funding ceases, the problem will still stare at you in the face. And so you need to develop a very sustainable model that ensures that when the initial support is done, you still are in the position to keep providing the farmer that support. And my last point is that the ultimate person or who is of interest is a smallholder farmer. And the trust of that farmer that you are always going to be there for him or her when the challenge is, is staring at them, is what is going to make your business survive. And I think Farmerline is working towards that. So we're an example of what you're asking for, but it's not easy, and we're still working at it, because we believe that taking them out of that poverty is our mission, and we'll continue doing so, and we look forward to partner with many organizations that are open to walk that journey with us. Thanks.
Thank you. This provides us the opportunity, Wolali, that you brought everybody together, to give the other panelists the opportunity to to provide their concluding remarks so that we can end the session. So I will start with you, Olga.
Partly to respond to Karen, thank you for your question, but partly also to conclude, well, just to reiterate what Lali was saying, like partnerships are costly. They're costly in terms of time, in terms of resources, in terms of conversations, team, but I think we're going the right way. So you were talking about pilots that fail. You learn from that. You learn from, you build some trust, some more trust in some partners than others. And I do think it's the only way in which we are going to be, in which it's possible to offer any type of integrated, holistic microfinance, well, serve financially smallholder farmers. So keep at it, because there are examples, and it happens.
Thank you. Monsieur Ilougan, vous nous donnez vos remarques pour la clôture de la session?
Ok, merci. Je crois que ce partenariat entre tous les acteurs est primordial, comme vient de le dire le frère. Tout ce dont nous savons aujourd'hui est que la finance, le monde agricole est dans vos mains, on va dire ainsi. Tant que nous n'allons pas investir dans les domaines qui aident dans ce changement climatique et que nous allons toujours aller vers le profit, je crois qu'il y en aura un temps donné où on va avoir le capital, mais c'est trop tard, nous ne pouvons plus investir. C'est ce que j'ai à dire comme conclusion.
D'accord, merci. Lydia, would you take us through your final comments?
Thank you. I would say that building the resilience of our clients, of our farmers, should never ever be an afterthought. It calls for the right balance of technology, access to finance, and access to non-financial services. And if we are able to get that balance right, I'm sure the results will be, as I said in the past, it becomes a win-win for all of us, whether we are investors, whether we are government institutions, whether we are financial institutions. So as we design our programs and products, it's really, really important that we put our clients at the center of the design that we have it. And of course, we should also not forget about the people that we are leaving behind, the women, the youth, and also people with disability, all the vulnerable groups. We should make sure that they are also part of the solution when it comes to climate adaptation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lydia, and all of the panelists. So I am taking away from this panel that yes, a holistic approach is key to developing climate-smart agriculture for smallholder farmer resilience. But finance is not enough. Training, inputs, markets are essential. And one key ingredient is trust. Trust for the financial institution to be able to extend those facilities and also demonstrate impact to the global investors, but trust also from the perspective of the farmers, so that they know that it's not just a one-shot or it's not just a one emergency financing facility, that in the long run, their resilience and their capacity to adapt to climate change is going to increase. So I thank you very much for your great insights, and I thank the audience for their attention. Thank you.